Hello everybody! These days, the speed at which NuGet packages are being updated increases by the day. .NET 9 is already at version 10, and each dependent package every time needs to be upgraded as well. But how do you keep your projects in sync? This is Stef from Samayas, and welcome to my channel. Well, recently I did a previous video about how you can build a pipeline to create a nightly and a weekly build just to stay informed whether or not you have NuGet packages in your multiple projects that are getting out of sync. Well, in that video I lied. In there I told you guys that in the end, once you know that your project is out of sync, you still need to open Visual Studio, update the NuGet package yourself, do a build, a test, etc. I didn't completely lie. I was rather fed up with it, and so I decided to take matters in my own hand, and I created a tool to automate things, and it's called NuGet.Updater. So let's dig in how it works. So, in order to install Samayas.Tools.ProjectsNugetUpdater, you go to the NuGet.org site. On top, you either type Samayas or you type the full Samayas.Tools.ProjectsNugetUpdater. And if you click through, you come on this page where you have a little README file with all the necessary documentation, which will also be included in this video. And then, if you want to install this, you just copy this command line, .NET tool install global, if you want to install it globally or not, and then Samayas.Tools.ProjectsNugetUpdater. And then, depending on whether you want the latest version or this specific version, you can also specify a version. We'll go for latest, and we'll copy this. Now I open up a command prompt, and so once we're in the command line, we just paste our previously copied command, and we call .NET tool install -- global Samayas tools project NuGet updater. And now it's installed. And if we want to list all our command lines which are currently installed, we type .NET tool list global. And this gives us an overview of all currently installed tools, but also, which is quite important, the command we need to execute to run this package. Now a quick run of the command line projects-nuget-updater returns the following, the complete syntax of how you can use it. So now let's have a look at the minimal flow. When I talk at the minimal flow, that means the basic minimal thing if you disable all extra features that the command line executes. The minimal flow, as you can see with the parameter specified, is not the same thing as a default flow. So the first step that Project NuGet Updater does is, based on the first parameter, which is the directory on which this tool will be running, is, for instance, in my library build tool, which I've used in previous samples, it'll search for all CS_proj files in every subdirectory. And once it has a complete list of those CS_proj files, it continues. And so once it located all the CS_proj files, it'll open each of those CS_proj files, and if it's a valid CS_proj file, which is also a .NET Core file, it'll try to retrieve per file all NuGet packages. Once it has a list of all those NuGet packages and the versions installed, it'll contact the default NuGet API, and for each of those packages, it'll locate the latest version, compare that to the version in your CS_proj file, and depending on that, we'll keep a log whether or not your CS_proj file needs to be updated. And then the latest step, once it has a list of your NuGet packages and version number, and potentially new version numbers located on NuGet, well, it'll update the CS_proj files that need to be updated. And so that's a basic functionality that Project NuGet Updater does. Very simple. But you do need to have a .NET Core CS_proj file, and it needs to be valid, and it needs to contain NuGet packages which are publicly available. So the first step in the minimal flow is to always search for all CS_proj files in every subdirectory of the specified directory. However, you might have scenarios where you want to fine-tune a little bit. And for that, I've foreseen a possibility to filter. And so the first filtering option is filter on project files. So it'll first search for all CS_proj files, and based on that list it retrieves, you can do a second wildcard filter. So as the example shows, if at first you already had a project which starts with my something, by specifying the filter my*csproj, only the project files that adhere to this filter will end up being processed. Now sometimes a wildcard is just what we need. However, sometimes we need to be able to pinpoint more precise. And in the second scenario, we can specify a list which is separated by a semicolon. And so in this scenario, it'll first search for all CS_proj files, and then it do a second filtering. And if we do have a proj1.csproj and a proj2.csproj, those two will stay, but still respecting the subdirectories possibly inside your projects. And then finally, you might still have a project with 10 CS_proj files, but you want to exclude only one or two. And so instead of using an include, it still searches on star.csproj files, and it'll exclude proj1 csproj and proj2 csproj, which is again a list separated by semicolons. As a remark, here I have not foreseen a wildcard search. And then finally, of course, you can still combine the star csproj with the filter on project files and then still exclude. And then you cover all possible scenarios. So, to Dotnetify or not to Dotnetify? That's the question. As you can see now in the command line, I have still specified pre-build, pre-test, post-build and post-test, but now I've set them to true. However, the default value is true, and so if you don't specify, each of those actions in a default flow will be executed. We've previously talked just about the minimal flow and taking away all the excess. Now here, first we are executing a pre-build, and our pre-build is just a .NET build before we execute our flow. If that build succeeds, we continue. If that build does not succeed, we stop the flow. The next step, we do a pre-test or we run .NET test. If all our tests succeed, we continue. If a test fails, again, the process stops, and it's probably wiser to first try to fix why the build is not working and or why a unit test is not working anymore before trying to update packages. If our pre-build and pre-test are successful, we will run our minimal flow, which will try to update all necessary packages. And then next we have our post-build, which is again a .NET build, which is a normal step. And we want to validate that after updating the packages, there were no breaking changes and our build is still working. If that fails, everything stops as well. And then finally, if that succeeds, we execute a post-test to validate our potential unit tests to again see if it's still working or not. Each of those options are optional, and depending on your scenario, you might want to remove or leave them in place. That's up to you. Now, of course, in .NET, when you're talking about build and test, you're talking about build configurations. Out of the box, it'll build in release. However, again, you might have scenarios where you need to build in debug or in something else you predefined. And I've added an extra option, build configuration, which is unique, which means that I can run one build configuration different from release for each of the steps. So I cannot have a build configuration debug for pre-build, but then run a release for post-build, etc. Again, the question is to Git or not to Git. Me, I'm using Git because I'm using Azure DevOps, and the latest and default repos are in Git and not in the old TFS format. Of course, there's other source controls out there. That's why I've made this optional. And now to clearly show the options, I've explicitly defined use Git to true, but use Git true is a default option. And in my first and most simple scenario, I've still disabled my git commit, my git push, and my git branch create. And in the most simple scenario, by just doing this command line, if I'm using Git, and if I have enabled it, I will do a git pull, and then I will do my normal minimal flow with my Dotnetify or not, and I won't do anything else. And then the rest is up to you, depending on what you need. If I push it one step further, Well, it's almost the same. I still have use git to true, I still have my git push to false, and I still have my git create branch to false. I will do a git pull, I will do my minimal flow with Dotnetify or not, and at the end, I'll commit my git to my local repo. And it's up to you whether or not you want to push it to remote repo. And then in my third scenario, I still do a git pull, I do my minimal flow with Dotnetify, I commit to my local repo, and I push it to the remote repo. And this might be a very feasible scenario if you only have a main and you don't work with feature branches. And the final scenario is all the way. I do a git pull, I create a git branch. If my branch exists, I just pull it and use that branch. If it doesn't exist, I create a default feature branch / update packages. I still do my minimal flow and my .netify. Again, I do a git commit, and at the end, I do a git push. This scenario is the safest scenario, since you do all your modifications on a separate branch and you won't be impacting anybody. However, in this scenario, you still need to go to your server and or validate and do pull requests to migrate these modifications in your main or default or development branch, depending on how you work. And now, when we are in this scenario, the default for my branch is feature / update packages, but there's a parameter, git branch name, which allows me to define whatever feature / my branch, my fix, whatever. So again, you have a flexibility of defining the branch name you want to create. When you enable a git commit, of course, the details will list each and every package per project which is updated. And then finally, if you disable the git commit, of course, out of the box, the git push will be disabled as well, since there's nothing to push. And then now, we end up in what I call the quote-unquote advanced NuGet configuration. Until now, this whole video was made with the assumption that you don't necessarily have your own NuGet config file in the root folder of the directory that you pass to run this tool. And that's not required. A lot of .NET projects don't have their own NuGet config, and they work perfectly fine. When this tool starts, if it doesn't find a NuGet.config file, it'll just take the hard-coded default NuGet.config server. If, however, it does find a NuGet.config file, as shown in the example on screen, it'll go and search for the packet sources, and it'll build a list of all the packet sources that you have configured in your NuGet.config file. And then, when the minimal flow will be running, for each of those packages, it'll query each of those servers to find the latest version of that package. If you just have a home project, in general, you won't need this. In the enterprise world, however, in a lot of scenarios, you might not even be able to get to the internet and or need to access an internal NuGet server which hosts everything. Or, as this example shows, it might be a combination between you can access the public NuGet server for all public NuGets, but then you have an internal NuGet server which hosts your internal NuGets. And as you can also see, the command line also has a parameter, NuGet.config file, which by default specifies NuGet.config, but which you can also override to, for instance, my NuGet.config or NuGet subdirectory / NuGet.config. So here, there's a lot of flexibility to provide other NuGet files and also other package sources. However, if you do introduce your own NuGet server, in general, that introduces an extra issue. Public NuGet servers in general are accessible as an anonymous user. However, depending on your internal NuGet server, that might not necessarily be the case. If you're using an Azure DevOps NuGet server, in general, you will have to authenticate. And so here we have an extra issue. And in essence, the only way to access your internal server is to provide it with an authentication token and authenticate to that server. Otherwise, this tool won't work. So, in order for this tool to have access to our local Azure DevOps server, where we have hosted our artifacts feed, we need to connect to our Azure DevOps server, and once we're in there, independently of the collection, so we need to click on our user, and then we need to go to security. And once we are in our security tab, we need to click on new token, and then we need to give it a name, and I've called it ProjectsNugetUpdater Artifactory Feeds. And we also need to click on Show All Scopes, and then we need to find the packaging line, and there we need to provide read access. we can click on Create, and here now we have our token, which we can later use in our command line tool. So we need to copy it, and we need to safely save it so we can use it. And so once that is done, you can see we have a new token which can be used. And of course we need to keep in tow the expiration date and regularly update it, otherwise it won't work anymore. And so now that we have created and have our path to connect to our internal Azure DevOps server, we return back to our command line, and here we have two options. We have the interactive setup path mode, or we have the command line mode. In the interactive setup path mode, we just type projects.nuget-updater with setup-path, and then first it prompts for the source name. It defaults to internal Azure DevOps NuGet. However, in my NuGet.config, which I specified internal Azure DevOps server, and the name of the key must correspond to the source name you enter here. And once you press enter, it'll prompt you again and will ask for your path code, which is not visible, which you can just enter one by one or copy paste. And once you press enter, your path code is locally saved on your machine and saved. The second alternative is almost the same, but we're not in interactive mode, we're just in parameters mode. And here again, now we specify the source, and the internal Azure DevOps server again is exactly the same as our internal Azure DevOps server specified in our NuGet.config. And here our token, we just paste it. And once we execute that command, if we go to our internal File System Explorer, under our user profile, under the NuGet directory, it creates a path config.json file which contains the key and the path. And to guarantee the safety of this path key, under the hood, protect data protection from Windows subsystem is used and is protected to the current user, which means that the keys are stored internally somewhere in Windows system and only the current user can decrypt it. And then a quick view, this file looks like that, which is completely irreadable. But then again, everything can be hacked. And on the other side, if you created your path correctly, the only thing it can do is read your NuGet packages. Now the Azure DevOps token and the setup path is only necessary when you have an internal Azure DevOps server which requires authentication. In all other scenarios, you don't need to do this. And finally, if you're running in an enterprise environment, in general, you might need to go through a proxy. I've created this tool to use the default proxy settings in .NET, which means that if you have configured correctly your Windows configuration, it should pass a proxy, and even authentication using default credentials should be successful. And then finally, a little update. With the release of .NET 10 around the corner, I discovered the hard way that there were still some issues when connecting to the NuGet API. And for some of those NuGet packages, I always retrieve the latest, but the latest were pre-releases. And so I decided to add an extra parameter, include pre-release, which is by default false, so that if you really want it and you put it true, you get the latest version. But in general, when we want to upgrade to the latest final version. And so that fixes the issue as well. Well, after some intensive development and testing and debugging, I was quickly able to build a quite solid tool. At least, I hope. It did solve my issues, and now, if I need to update a project, I just have a small command script and everything is done in a couple of seconds. Of course, depending on the time you need to build and test your project. Now, if you want to do the same thing, you can just install this tool, or you can write it yourself if you really want to. If you guys enjoy this content, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell sign, or leave a comment down below.